All right, hey guys, I'm going to do some asks. I'm also going to maybe talk about some things that have been sent to me in the past week or that I've been tagged in. We'll just see how much we get through. So the first one is I did want to revisit the Mork and Mindy scene because I've had a lot of people comment on it, and I actually found a really interesting article. Um, so first, I was just going to read this YouTube comment from Nostalgic 90S765. I do find that Mork and Mindy scene to be very strange. I've come to the conclusion that he's definitely thinking about Beth there, given his very melancholy tone directly afterward in the bed scene with Isabel, where he has the line, "You can't miss what you never had." Even though it's very clear he does miss something that he never had because he almost had it with Beth. But yeah, I just can't figure out why Mork and Mindy specifically would trigger those feelings in him. It does seem like the audience is almost intentionally missing a piece of the puzzle there. I cannot agree more. And this feels like I really like that last part that you said, as though the audience is intentionally missing a piece of the puzzle. It feels like that a lot with Beth symbolism. There are certain things that it's like, okay, why? And I say this all the time, like, why are they putting that in? For no reason. They aren't. And Gimple and a lot of the, Nick Terrell, a lot of the showrunners have told us that they put things in intentionally, that everything is put in there for a reason, even if we don't know what it is right away. So yeah, I mean, certainly you could, harken back to Grady and the fact that we're clearly missing a piece of the puzzle there because we didn't completely understand what was going on. And, it's not humanly possible based on what we saw for Dawn to have been the one that shot her. So either they took out a chunk of the scene where Dawn pulled out her gun and it went off, or there's something else going on and somebody else was the shooter, right? But it feels like that a lot. So I really like what you said. In terms of why Mork and Mindy. So I found this article. Um, I was Googling something about Mork and Mindy. I don't remember what it was. I was actually researching the show, not necessarily Walking Dead, right? And this popped up. Let me go to the top here. This is one of those, it's comicbook.com, one of those websites, which we know um, when they do articles about The Walking Dead, what they are able to post, what they're able to write about is um, approved specifically by the showrunners, right? By Gimple, by Kang, by whoever. So this says, TWD, Daryl Dixon, director, explains that Robin Williams sitcom scene. And I was like, oh, I have not read this article before. Let's take a look. This part just talks about like what The Walking Dead is, right? And that there was a scene on there. And then it says, the travelers encounter the teenage Lou. I always forget her name. She's the one that's running the school, and we very much tied her to Beth. And her howling youths who have fortified École. Okay, I'm not gonna. Maternelle Simone Veil. I used to speak French. I obviously do not speak it well anymore. A preschool honored in dedication of famed French politician Simone Veil. There are 18 foundlings living at the school, converted into a humble but self-sustaining community by the children's ailing teacher, Madame Dubois. The children entertain themselves with an outdated television powered by bicycle-generated electricity, playing taped episodes of the classic late 70s, early 80s sitcom Mork and Mindy. Okay, so this is just establishing what we're at here. Then they have some quotes. Me and my brother used to watch it when we were young. Daryl later tells Isabel, which they spelled wrong, about his older brother Merle, who eventually enjoyed doing recreational drugs while watching a dumb cartoon about a talking dog. That's direct from Still. That's what he told Beth. Why would they put that in this article? There's not really any particular reason to put that there. They're kind of masquerading as a reference to Merle, but that's kind of a big leap to say. They could have just said he used to watch it with Merle and stop, right? They didn't have any reason to put in a quote from Still. Then another quote that was from the episode, we love that show, used to make everything just a little better, And then it says, we took a long time to get the permits to include the scenes from Mork and Mindy. Episode director told The Wrap, calling the throwback to Daryl's favorite episode show so perfect. It's a story of fish out of water and an alien in a strange land, so it's so appropriate. Okay. Number one. So we have confirmation then that part of the reason they used it is to parallel Mork and Daryl, right? Because of what he just said. Stranger in a strange land, Daryl's in France, yada, yada. But what that tells me to continue that is that everything about Mork is applicable to Daryl, right? So the stranger in a strange land thing is fine, but they don't say anything here about the romance. There's a lot of shows, old TV shows they could have used for this that would have had nothing to do with romance, but they particularly used this one. Then, the Happy Days spinoff followed the hyperactive Orkin. This is just talking a little bit more about it. I actually did not know that Mork and Mindy was a Happy Days spinoff, so that was new to me. Trivia: the Mork and Mindy episode that appears in Daryl Dixon is the season 4 episode, The Mork Report, originally aired in 1982. Mork reports on his observer thesis about the 4 main ingredients to a successful marriage, including that they are honesty, respect, romance, and compatibility. So again, they're telling us which episode it was so that we know exactly, there's no mistake, which episode of Mork and Mindy they used. And they're telling us that it was all about romance and marriage. But they don't mention why they used that in the episode. Again, maybe they could have used a different episode that was not centered on the romance and on the marriage. But this is the one they picked. Later, after Madame Dubois succumbs to illness, the children of the École pay tribute to their teacher with the Orkin greeting and goodbye, Nanu Nanu. Read the Daryl Dixon episode recap here. Okay, so that's like the whole article. So the main things that I took away from that are that Mork equals Daryl, right? Guys, this happened during season 1, which meant this is when everyone was speculating whether Daryl and Isabel would get together. Nobody knew for sure yet, and we certainly didn't know she was going to die. But given that she did die, I mean, clearly she's not his happy ending because she died. So while Mork equals Daryl, Mindy does not equal Isabel. So who does she equal? Obviously, whoever his happy ending and love interest is, and that has not been confirmed yet, but we all know who we think it will be, right? The other thing is, when I read this article, I went, wait a minute. The title says, the director explains that sitcom. And I was like, they didn't explain anything. They just told us what we'd already seen. And I mean, yeah, they have the whole thing about his brother and him watching it, and it was so perfect, you know, stranger in a strange land. I guess that's probably their explainer, right? But again, they went out of their way to tell us that this episode focused on marriage and a romantic relationship, and they didn't tell us why they used that. I mean, the whole director explains it. That's what I would have wanted to know. Excuse me. Why did you pick this episode? Why did Daryl stop smiling when he was watching it, right? They're not talking about that. And to be fair, if they had talked about that, everyone would have assumed it was Isabel. So that was probably a little bit dangerous territory for them because they didn't want there to be any misconceptions. But you see what I mean. They're talking about it without actually talking about it. So I thought this article was kind of funny. But yeah, just to show that we know that it's going the whole series, because of we had Judith's voiceover in the first episode, is going to be about him finding his happy ending. And this is just more proof of it because they're telling us that they use this to represent Daryl and Mork equals Daryl. And in the show, Mork and Mindy, not only does he fall in love with Mindy and marry Mindy, but they have a baby together. So it's just more confirmation that this is where it's going with Daryl. And like I said before, the fact that he stopped smiling, he did that once before when he was looking at Beth's portrait at Hilltop. It has to be about Beth. Like, I don't see anybody else it could be about. So I just wanted to throw that out there, and thank you for the comment on YouTube. Yeah, now we will go ahead and switch over to asks. Let's start with this one. Atrum Regina Blue. Question 1. Have you talked before, or you have talked before, about the consumed template in Finding Beth Again? Is Noah part of this template? Will there be someone Beth has rescued or someone that met her and points Daryl in that direction? 2, do we have the names of the new characters, and is there any interesting analysis about them? And 3, we know they're filming season 4 in Spain, but have they said it's Spain they are depicting, or is it sneakily Italy, maybe Rome? All right, so for question 1, is Noah part of it? Probably, but it may not show up in the same format. So I'm constantly like on the search for someone, because I don't think he's suddenly going to stumble upon Beth and like see her directly in front of him without any kind of buildup. So I do think that there could be someone who mentions her, but probably not by name. I keep thinking that there's going to be someone that's going to tell him, oh, this person over here is doing this, that, or the other, and that will be interesting to him, not obviously because he thinks it's Beth, but for some other reason. And so then he'll go looking for this person, and it'll turn out to be Beth. I keep thinking something like that's going to happen. So if that's the case, then yeah, there will be like a Noah type character, some part of the arc. And I'm sure that, like you said, it happened in season 5. So I'm sure there's a reason for that, but it also may not be exactly the same thing. Like it might not be someone that she rescued who's trying to go back for her. And you know what I mean? It's not exactly the same, but I think we'll see something that kind of parallels that. Um, but yeah, again, we'll just have to wait and see. It did occur to me that she sort of rescued uh, Noah and let him go, and that could equate to the children she's taking care of, possibly. And I'm not saying that Noah was like her child or anything, just someone that she became protective of and was trying to help, right? That's funny because she responds very, very well to people who are kind to her. And, you might think, well, don't most people? Yeah, but she's very drawn to that, more than sometimes other people are. That's why she takes care of children, because she's very drawn to that. And, Edwards was technically kind to her, although I think she always suspected him of having an ulterior motive. But the second Noah gave her a lollipop and like smiled at her and was nice, he was instantly her best friend and she was going to be loyal to him. So anyway, I was thinking about that, but I don't know. I don't know what format it will take, but I think that there will be something. I do not know the names of the new characters off the top of my head. I think they have been reported, so you could Google that. But as far as I know, there isn't any particular analysis about them. We'll probably do more as it draws closer because I think any names that are known, if they were really making TDers suspicious about things, we would have had analysis, but I think we'll get more as we get closer to when the third season airs and they just give us more information, more trailers, that sort of thing. But as of right now, I haven't seen anything big. We know they're filming in Spain. Will they be depicting it as something else? That very well could be. In fact, we do know that they're going through the English Channel, so some of it is going to be in Great Britain. And we don't know if they're filming there or if they filmed that in Spain and they'll call it Great Britain. It's not clear yet. But they did do that in season 2, right? They said that they were going to Greenland, and really now we know that they were filming in the French Alps. So that wouldn't be surprising at all if they film everything in Spain, but they're actually moving through several different countries. And the thing about that too is that once you get over to Europe, and I know that some people listening are from Europe, but you got to understand that the United States is humongous. Okay. I have a student who is in Great Britain, and I was talking to her about this a few months ago. Or, I mean, it wasn't that long ago, it was probably a few weeks ago. And she told me kind of the opposite. She said, we were talking about time zones, and she was going, I don't think you Americans always realize that those of us over in Europe have a hard time imagining how big the US is. Like, it totally blows our minds that you have like 4 different time zones in one country. Because over there, Great Britain is all in one time zone. Plus, there's like 2 other countries in that time zone. So it's like the opposite, right? And I just kind of laughed and I said, well, I could say the opposite is true. I think we have a hard time understanding how small the countries are over there because I'm always hearing about people in Europe, in Western Europe, who by the time they're 18, they visited like 6 countries. And we don't see that as much over here because everything's so big. It's hard for us to get to other countries and it's expensive. But it's not so much over there because other countries are just a train ride away, right? So all I'm saying is that, once they get over to Europe, it's not going to be terribly difficult for Daryl and Carol to get into other countries. So it very well may be that they go to other places and it's all filmed in Spain. So I don't know what the answer to that is. We'll just have to wait and see, but it's very possible. So thank you for that ask. Let's move to the next one. I believe Carol is going to die. Melissa McBride did not film from the second half of filming season 3. That there was strange Strange Comic-Con where Norman Reedus and Melissa McBride were crying. Filming spoilers have already said she went missing and season 3 was left on a cliffhanger. The other possibility is that she was kidnapped and it's a fake out death, but my intuition is that Melissa McBride is done. She didn't want to be part of the Daryl Dixon show, and then she did agree to season 2. The show title dropped to the Book of Carol for season 3. I know her going missing is part of the symbolism of the main show and the Grady arc. But with Norman Reedus and Melissa McBride crying during that Comic-Con, I really believe she wanted out. What do you think? Um, I'm not sure I entirely agree. I mean, I can see them. I've always said I can see them killing her off eventually, but I think it would be much nearer like the end of the TWD universe. Now, granted, Melissa McBride is getting older and she might decide at some point that she's just done. And I know that the show would be very respectful to her if that were the case, but I don't feel like we're there yet. It actually, so I wasn't sure exactly what you were talking about them crying at Comic-Con. So I asked around a little bit. That was just something that I missed. So WD Way told me that the only thing she could think of was that at the last San Diego Comic-Con before season 11 aired. Um, Melissa got emotional on the main panel interview and didn't show up at other press interviews that the cast was doing. So I don't know, maybe I need a little more information about this Comic-Con that you're talking about because I don't remember hearing that. But again, I don't always follow everything really super closely, so I might have missed it. So I mean, it could have been about anything. To me, if she didn't film for the second half and she's gone missing, that's a very good thing. I mean, sucks to be Carol and all that, not for her character necessarily, but it's more of the season 5 template that's happening. And something occurred to me actually when I was answering something previously. And this is just a general wonderment for me. It's not anything that necessarily has more symbolism than anything else, but wouldn't it be interesting? This would be super, super interesting. There's a line that has always stuck out to me. I know I've mentioned it a few times, but I don't mention it all the time. That Edwards says to Gorman when they're at Grady. And, Gorman's doing his thing, jutting his chest out and saying, nobody can touch me, and, all of that. And Edwards is protecting Beth because Gorman wants Beth. And anyway, it's when he says, no one's yours, Gorman, she's with me, she's my assistant. And oh, maybe Edwards doesn't say it to Gorman. Maybe Gorman says it to Edwards. Because Dawn walks up and says, Gorman, come help me. And that is Dawn like stepping in to stop him from, pushing things with Edwards. And unfortunately, it's still not the best leadership. Like it does help that she steps in because Gorman goes with her, but she's also like using an excuse to step in and saying, I need you to come do work rather than saying, Gorman, knock it off. We're not putting up with that here. You know what I mean? So she's not being the strongest leader right there. Anyway, but he says the line that I'm talking about that he says, someday there's going to be someone in charge that isn't you and isn't her. And when he says her, he means Dawn. But we've always seen that as a foreshadow of Beth taking leadership. A lot of people thought she would take leadership at Grady. Nicotero says that the hospital is not there anymore in the present timeline, that it went down at some point. So we don't know yet if she ever did. She might have, and maybe we'll see it in flashback. But wouldn't it be crazy if here we are in season 3 of Daryl Dixon, and Carol gets taken by some group, just like she was taken by the Gradients in season 5. And when Daryl gets there, of course, Daryl would go after her to go get her. And when he gets there, wouldn't it be crazy if Beth was in charge? If it was a Grady sort of situation with Beth in Dawn's role? That would be, oh, what a crazy amount of symbolism that would fulfill, right? Just conjecture on my part, guys. It's just something that I thought of when I was answering some asks, but I have no idea if that's what's going to happen, but it would be kind of cool if it did. So yeah, I mean, obviously we don't know. I don't know if they're going to kill her off. Nobody knows. But my feeling is that if they do, it won't be yet. I personally think that, of course, the season 5 template has to play out. And if she weren't, let's put it this way, she couldn't do season 1 for whatever reason. They haven't really released it other than it was personal reasons, right? And then she, like you say, she agreed to do season 2 and now 3. But I think if she absolutely could not do it, or said, I'm only going to come back for 1 season or something like that, they would have just written her out then, and they would have given Daryl a different partner. So it either would have been someone he met, like Isabel, and she would take over Carol's role, or they would have had, I don't know, Aaron or someone go with him, right? To step into that role. But the fact that she is back, I don't think that would have been like, okay, I'll come back and do 2 seasons and then I'm done. I think that they would have said, we want you to make sure that we have you for the entire arc to play out, however many seasons that is. So if the entire season 5 arc takes 4 or 5 seasons to play out, I think Carol will be present for all of them. After that, then maybe if she wants to leave the show, then they would write her out. I also do think that we need to see her go back to Ezekiel for, put TD aside for a minute, for Carol's character, because in season 2, she worked through a lot of things. We saw her with Sophia. We saw her with thinking about things that had to do with Henry, and the loss of those children and the guilt she felt for them is the biggest reason she left Ezekiel, and he is her soulmate. So I think we need to see her go back to him and say, I'm better now, I've worked through these things, and like have that relationship with him again and have that happy ending. And then after that, if they want to write her out or kill her off or whatever, then they will. So that's just my personal opinion, but we will just have to wait and see. I do feel, yeah, I know that it feels like that sometimes, but I don't know. I just don't think it would be logical for her to show up, say, I'm doing this many seasons and then I'm out. They would want her to go to the end of the arc, and we just haven't seen the end of that arc yet, so I don't think she's getting killed off yet. But thank you for that question. All right, guys, I'm going to cut off there, but I will get you at least one more video before the end of the week, so I will talk to you again soon.